You know what finally made me rethink everything I thought I knew about garden productivity? It was about 10 years ago, and I was feeling pretty proud of my backyard setup. I had my neat rows, my brand name fertilizers, and I was spending about 2 hours a day weeding and watering just to keep up. Then I took a drive down a back road in Lancaster County and stopped at an Amish farm stand to buy some eggs. I looked past the stand at their kitchen garden. It couldn't have been more than 40 by 60 feet, and it was literally bursting at the seams. There were 10 kids running around that farm, and that one little patch of ground was providing nearly everything they ate. I looked at my garden, then I looked at theirs, and I realized I was working twice as hard for half the harvest. It was a humbling moment. Seeing how much I'd been overcomplicating things while missing the basic principles of density. Today I'm going to walk you through exactly how they do it and how you can start using these space-saving methods in your own backyard, even if you only have a few raised beds. And stick around to the end because I'll share a specific vertical trellising trick using nothing but scrap lath that keeps your heavy squash off the ground and doubling your square footage. For the first 15 years of my gardening life, I followed the row method because that's what the hardware store seed packets told me to do. I'd plant a row of beans, leave 2 feet of walking space, then plant a row of peppers. It worked fine, I suppose, but I was basically growing a crop of weeds in those walking paths and then complaining about the work. When I started talking to my Amish neighbors, I realized they don't see a garden as a series of lines. They see it as a carpet of food. They operate on a principle of stewardship of the square inch. In their view, every inch of bare soil is a wasted opportunity and an invitation for weeds. It's a closed-loop philosophy where the plants themselves do the work of mulching the ground. And here's where the science backs them up. Studies from several agricultural universities have shown that intensive planting, or canopy closure, significantly reduces soil evaporation and suppresses weed germination by blocking out the light. It turns out the Amish weren't just trying to save space, they were creating a self-protecting microclimate. The first thing Amish gardeners understand is that if you want to grow more food in less space, you have to stop thinking about walking paths as permanent fixtures. In a conventional garden, we often dedicate 40% of our space just to our feet. My neighbor Levi showed me his wide bed system. Instead of single rows, he plants in blocks that are about 4 feet wide. That's just narrow enough to reach the middle from either side without ever stepping on the soil. By doing this, he instantly increased his growing area by nearly a third without adding an inch to the garden's footprint. If you're in zone 6 or 7 where our spring rains can really pack down the dirt, this is a lifesaver because you never compact the root zones with your boots. Now, this next piece is one that I completely overlooked for most of my gardening life. It's called intercropping, but the Amish just call it common sense. They'll plant long season crops like cabbage or peppers, but in the space between those small starts, they'll sow quick harvest crops like radishes or leaf lettuce. By the time the cabbage needs that extra room to spread out, the radishes are already on the dinner table. I'll be honest with you, the first time I tried this, I was worried the plants would choke each other out, but what I noticed was the opposite. The fast-growing lettuce acted as a living mulch, keeping the soil cool and moist for the deeper-rooted plants. This next step is where things really start to look different from a conventional garden, and it's what I call triangular offset planting. Instead of planting in a square grid, like a 4-inch by 4-inch square, the Amish plant in a zigzag or triangle pattern. It sounds like a small detail, but by offsetting the rows, you can actually fit about 10 to 15% more plants in the same bed while giving each plant the exact same amount of root space. It's simple geometry that leads to a much fuller canopy. For those of you in the hotter climates of zones 8 and 9, this is a game changer because that dense canopy shades the soil much faster, preventing your plants from wilting in the mid-afternoon sun. Now, let me be straight with you about something. You can't just pack plants in tighter and expect them to thrive if your soil is thin. This is the part of the system that ties it all together. Because the Amish are harvesting so much from such a small area, they are obsessive about heavy charging the soil with composted manure between every single planting. They aren't just adding a little sprinkle. Yeah, they're putting down 2 inches of well-rotted material every time a bed cleared. I started doing this 3 years ago, and the difference in my yields was night and day. Realistic first-year expectations are that you might see a 20% increase in your harvest. That's still a huge win. Improve your soil health each year, and those numbers climb, but I'd rather you start with honest expectations and be pleasantly surprised as your soil biology catches up to the demands of intensive planting. If you're If you're picking up what I'm putting down and you want more of these deep dives into how Amish and Mennonite families approach the garden, hit subscribe. I've got a lot more of these coming. Now, let's keep going. One of the biggest hurdles to this high-density way of growing is the fear of pests. And this is where I see a lot of people go back to the old way, but this is the part that surprised me the most. Instead of keeping crops separate to prevent spread, the Amish mix them up. You'll see marigolds, onions, and herbs tucked into every available corner of these dense beds. This isn't just for looks. It creates a confused landscape for insects. If a pest likes broccoli, it's much harder for it to find and colonize a patch if that broccoli is surrounded by the strong scents of onions and marigolds. I want to be upfront here because I think honesty matters more than hype. This doesn't mean you'll never see a bug, but it does mean you won't see a total crop failure because you've broken up the all-you-can-eat buffet of a single crop row. Now, even in the coldest regions, like zones 3 through 5, the Amish utilize succession sowing to keep that small space producing from March through November. The moment a pea vine starts to yellow, it's pulled, and a heat-tolerant green or a fall root crop goes in immediately. There is never, and I mean never, empty brown dirt in an Amish kitchen garden during the growing season. This is where that system thinking I mentioned earlier comes into play. The intensive spacing keeps the weeds down, which saves you time, and that saved time is what you use to stay on top of your succession planting. If you treat these as isolated tricks, they're just extra work, but when you use them together, the garden almost starts to manage itself. I'll be honest with you, I used to fall into some patterns that really held me back, and I see other gardeners doing it too. No judgment here, I did this for years. And the first pattern is the path trap. We think we need a wide highway between every crop so we can walk comfortably. But the Amish taught me that the garden is for the plants, not for my comfort. If you can reach it, you don't need a path there. Another pattern I noticed in my own life was the single harvest mindset. I used to plant all my tomatoes at once, harvest them all at once, and then the ground sat bare for the rest of the year. The Amish approach is a constant cycle. They view the garden as a pantry that needs to be restocked every week, not a warehouse that gets filled once a year. Lastly, there's the isolation mistake, treating your fertilization, your weeding, and your spacing as 3 separate chores. In the Amish system, the dense spacing is the weeding strategy, and the heavy composting is the moisture retention strategy. Everything is connected. When you stop looking at them as separate tasks, the workload actually starts to feel lighter, even though you're growing more food. Now, here's something I picked up from an Amish family over in the Big Valley area that I haven't seen mentioned in any gardening guide. It's a technique they use for climbing their heavy vining crops like cantaloupe or small pumpkins in a tiny space. They take old wooden lath, those thin strips of wood from old plaster walls, and they tie them into a simple A-frame. But here's the secret. They don't just let the vine grow up it. They use old strips of denim or soft cotton rags to create slings for the fruit. Once a melon gets to be about the size of a baseball, they cradle it in that little hammock tied to the lath. And this allows them to grow heavy, sprawling vines vertically in a space only 2 feet wide. I started doing this with my sugar baby watermelons 3 years ago, and not only did I save a massive amount of ground space, but I didn't lose a single fruit to ground rot or slugs. It's a simple scrapwood solution that doubles your usable square footage. That's what I've learned from Amish and Mennonite gardeners about making the most of a small plot of land. It's not about buying the latest gadgets, it's about being a good steward of the space you have and understanding how the plants can work together. If any of this changed how you think about your garden layout, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Are you going to try shrinking your paths this year, or maybe try that triangular planting? Let me know. Or hit subscribe if you want more of these deep dives into how traditional communities grow food with methods that have worked for generations. Thanks for spending time with me today. I'll see you in the next one. Jest you.